that we've seen in the movies, and some of us have lived through it in a way that can only be described as far too painful to imagine unless you experience it. Imagine if somebody you love needs an organ that can save their lives, but those organs are just not available. That is the truth of India today. An estimated 3,000 people die every year because of the absence of timely organ transplant surgeries. Between 150,000 to 200,000 people in India need kidney transplants every year. The supply is much, much less than what's available. What is ironic is that India's track record on organ donation contrasts quite poorly with the world. So, for example, if in Spain you have an estimated 35 donors for 1 million people, in India you have less than one person, it's in fact 0.08 if I'm not wrong, willing to donate their organs. What is it about Indians that makes them, in a sense, reluctant to donate their organs? Are there cultural reservations? Is it a lack of awareness? Or does the legal and medical environment make it very difficult to do what many of us want to believe we would do, at least pledge to donate our organs? Dr. Harjori, I start with you because the hospital where you work has had to deal with a peculiar challenge recently. And that is that there is a woman who wanted a kidney transplant, and she had a niece who was willing to donate a kidney to her. But because the law actually only talks about relatives and close relatives being permitted to donate an organ, unless an authorization committee decides otherwise, the hospital felt that this should not be done. You were not able to tell that there was no commerce going on behind this transaction. The High Court decided, no, let's allow this family, let's allow this woman to get a transplant. Now, in many ways, this typifies the dilemmas that surround this debate in this country. What were the reservations, sir, when it comes to ascertaining that there is no commerce involved?
You see, the requirement is patient-based,
yes,
recipient-based. Unfortunately or fortunately, the law is donor-based, and it has two components. One part of it is where the donor is a near relative, a mother, father, brother, sister, spouse, child, and the other is the other than near relative.
Yes, in this case it was a niece.
It was a niece. Now, this kind of donor has to go before an authorization committee,
yeah,
which has members of the state government, Department of Health and Directorate of Health. Now, they went through, and not once but 3 or 4 different occasions, they went and asked for various documents to certify that there is this kind of relationship and that there is no kind of commerce. To the best of their judgment, they found that they were not convinced. Quite correctly, the family took it up in the High Court. The Honorable High Court looked at the recipient, as I said, and wanted to take the matter up and asked the authorization committee to review it. Now, they reviewed it, and it went to the appellate authority, which is the Directorate General of Health. They also felt that they were not convinced.
Yeah.
Now, I can understand the dilemma everybody is facing, that here you have a situation where a patient requires a transplant, you have a donor who is not of the same socio-economic, and is claiming the clause where it says affection, attachment, or any other reason. Now, none of us can find a way in which you can literally weigh affection or attachment.
Can I ask you something? And it's a provocative question, but it has been suggested by some people that at least certain kinds of organ donation, let them be commercial. There is an Iran model, for example, where financial incentives are given. Do you feel that any sort of commerce should be permitted when it comes to organ donation?
The answer to that is that no civilized society can allow sale or purchase of organs.
Yes.
Now, when you got the Iranian model, that's fine for kidney transplants. But then along with that, all other transplants nosedive, and even the near relatives who may have come forward to give, they also do not come forward.
So you're saying this is the ethical dilemma that often, Dr. Guleria, and I'm sure all of you, all the doctors here have confronted this. There is the dilemma of a person whose life could be saved, and there is the suspicion that money has traded hands.
Ma'am, 2 things we must understand. The first is that every country will have a disparity between demand and supply. The second thing is that if you've been an organ transplant, the first thing you realize is that it's always the poor cousin or the poor relative who is the donor, and it's the rich uncle who is the recipient. It's never the other way around, right? So you can't blame an authorization committee because they will look at finance. Yeah. If the funding between two parties is gross disparity, they will say, well, there is a problem.
Yeah.
The Iranian model has a problem, and if you look at the articles that came out after this model came in, which basically meant that the government regulated transplantation. It was only done in government hospitals. Yeah. There was no money involved, and they would pay the donor a fixed sum of money. Now, Zarghushi wrote an article on that, which he published 4 or 5 times, and basically you had stories of donors disappearing.
Do you have the NDTV Profit app? All the markets, all the news, and your own homemade, ready-made portfolio available there for you.
We will right now answer what you should sell, what you should buy when markets are down.
Download at ndtvprofit.com/apps. Get the best app from the channel you trust.